The worst guest we ever had, because people used to ask me who the worst guest was, and I never had an answer, because you don't want to offend anyone.
Yes, of course.
But then I can now say it's Harvey Weinstein, because he was on the show.
Really? And was he a bad guest?
Well, apparently, yeah.
The worst guest I ever had is a question that people would ask me all the time. I never had an answer for years, because you just don't want to alienate anyone. And when you're in the business of having celebrities on your show, you don't exactly want to burn bridges and create trouble. But now I can say with confidence that the worst guest was Harvey Weinstein. Yes, the notorious Hollywood producer himself had once been a guest on the show. Really? Was he really a bad guest? People would ask. And the answer is, regrettably, yes. Graham Norton, at last at the age of 62, admitted what many had long suspected. After spending decades sitting across from some of the largest stars in show business, the quick-witted talk show host disclosed that there were actually a number of celebrities he flat out couldn't get along with. And not just one, he listed 6. From combustible offstage antics to cringeworthy onstage interviews, Norton didn't hold anything back. Some of the names he conceded would surprise even his most dedicated fans. Mark Wahlberg. In terms of late-night TV, there is no show more famous for its relaxed, informal style than The Graham Norton Show. It's been famous for its relaxed, lively vibe where celebrities drink beverages, chuckle at stories told by others, and provide light-hearted moments to the viewers at home. But in 2013, that entire vibe collapsed when Mark Wahlberg appeared and delivered what would go down as one of the most uncomfortable, chaotic episodes in the show's history, an appearance still discussed, rewatched, and analyzed more than a decade later. The strife began even before filming started. Wahlberg showed up to set clearly drunk, and immediately it was clear his level of energy would be erratic. While guests who are aloof, detached, and indifferent are a problem in that they command a lot of attention, Wahlberg was the opposite of that, too eager, volatile, and eager to take over the spotlight. He interrupted others, inserting himself into all conversations, and laced them with off-color jokes that made the tension build. As the taping continued, the pandemonium grew worse. Wahlberg constantly cut his other guests off, including comedian Sarah Silverman. His erratic, frequently crude remarks pushed the audience into the awkward place between laughing and embarrassment at someone else's expense. Silverman, the veteran at working with awkwardness, smiled and went along, but even she could not completely cover her embarrassment. The comedy, which could have been effective elsewhere, rapidly turned to disruption, disrupting the natural flow of the show. Next was the most bizarre moment of the evening. As if in a tipsy attempt at humor, Wahlberg got right on top of Graham Norton's lap, slurring his words. With a supportive arm thrown around the clearly embarrassed host, he tiptoed the fine line between crazy spontaneity and pure disrespect. The crowd laughed nervously, not knowing if it was part of an elaborate routine or a total boundaryless breakdown. Norton, the consummate professional that he is, tried to muscle through a smile, keeping the show going. But his body told the tale. He was stiff, strained, and set on keeping the evening from getting any worse. Norton later candidly admitted he was just out of it. I mean, really out of it. That quote encapsulated the disastrous meeting perfectly. What was to be another show packed with saucy repartee and loose-limbed charm instead became a cautionary tale of what happens when charm mixed with too much booze. Wahlberg later referenced the debacle himself, though only with a dismissive shrug. "I had a few drinks first. I was having too much fun," he confessed during a subsequent interview, downplaying it as harmless revelry. It was no big deal to him, but for most of the viewers, it was something much less forgivable. Not everybody found it possible to laugh it off. Some called it cringe comedy at its best, so awkward that it was almost funny. But for others, the episode was disrespecting Norton as well as the other guests who were sharing the platform. This was not just an instance of a celebrity being daft. It was a fleeting instant where the Graham Norton Show, otherwise sustained by its relaxed atmosphere and Norton's level head, was utterly derailed. For Norton, it was a trial of his skill at coping with chaos live on air. For Wahlberg, it was an education in the speed at which charm can curdle when combined with excess. And for the viewer, it was a cringe-inducing moment that defied whether it was comedy gold or an unwatchable spectacle of a celebrity losing it in the raw moment. However you look at it, the segment is now a part of late-night TV history, evidence that even the most seasoned hosts can be caught off guard when a guest gets a little too familiar with the green room bar. Mickey Rourke. One of the strengths of the Graham Norton Show is that it can take starchy, uncomfortable, or even weird guests and make them part of the entertainment. Norton possesses a unique talent for coaxing humor and warmth from anyone who appears on the iconic red couch with him. Mickey Rourke's visit, however, showed that occasionally even a very experienced host can't save an interview when a guest does not have the inclination to be there. In contrast to Wahlberg's noisy presence, Rourke wasn't boisterous, loud, or outlandish. Rather, he was the reverse. Flat, withdrawn, and near novelistic. As soon as he walked in, his presence sucked the energy from the room. In his signature offbeat attire, complete with sunglasses indoors and his favorite dog Loki held in his arms, Rourke seemed to have more important things to attend to. When Norton started asking questions, Rourke gave very short, mumbling answers, many times prompting the host to repeat or rephrase just to keep the line alive. Even jokes were met with silence. When Norton joked that Loki showed up with him on the red carpet, Rourke crisply responded, "Yes, and I was kind of hoping she took a big piss there, but did not." The joke was met with a small chuckle, but it didn't have the light-hearted thrust that normally carries the show. Another guest tried to make a connection by speaking about her own dog, and even volunteered to share a photo, but he hardly responded. Rather than igniting a lively give and take, the exchange fell flat. Rourke appeared to be in body only absent to the audience and to the conversation. His body language explained the rest. He sat back, arms folded, looking away from the rest of the guests, and made eye contact nearly never. It was the look of a man marking down the minutes until he could escape. Norton attempted many times mentioning Rourke's movies, accolades, and even his raunchy past, but nothing availed. The irony stung. Here was a man of larger-than-life stature, rich in colorful background and hot personality, but on Norton's couch he supplied nothing but emptiness and indifference. Kevin Costner. Kevin Costner's turn on the Graham Norton Show wasn't stormy and salacious like Wahlberg's, nor was it coolly detached like Rourke's. Rather, it was awkward, painfully, awkwardly awkward. Norton's program feeds on witty storytelling, humor, and comedic timing. Costner, who was famous for his stoic demeanor and introspective expression, did not quite fit the bill. While everybody else was set to laugh, Costner was still too serious, bringing down the mood rather than elevating it. When Norton attempted to joke about Costner having directed wolves on the set of Dances with Wolves, Costner retaliated with lengthy, meandering explanations that destroyed the comedic momentum. Rather than a wacky anecdote, he wandered off into a bizarre comparison of vacuum cleaner salesmen and lost both the host and audience along the way. During the course of the interview, Norton struggled to add humor, while Costner's responses were literal and not funny. He wasn't being rude, just sincere in an environment that was built on hyperbole. The result was tension, a slight but palpable disconnect between host and format. Even his demeanor evidenced the clumsiness. Costner remained stiffly, politely removed, never able to become part of the energetic group dynamic. Norton went so far as to admit later some guests simply don't get the format, and observing Costner, he was certainly among them. Robert De Niro. And then there was Robert De Niro. A Hollywood giant with 2 Academy Awards and a lifetime of work, De Niro is greatly revered on screen. But in interviews, particularly for fun ones like Norton's, he is famously tough. When De Niro showed up on the show, the mood shifted in an instant. While other guests were laughing and talking, De Niro hardly spoke at all. His answers were brief, sometimes only a handful of words. Norton attempted every trick, drawing upon humorous anecdotes, classic roles, and career highlights, but nothing penetrated. Daryl Hannah. When Daryl Hannah guested on the Graham Norton Show, viewers were looking for charm, anecdotes from her extensive Hollywood career, and possibly some eccentric tales about her memorable roles in movies such as Splash or Blade Runner. What they instead received was an interview so tense and cringeworthy that it is still regarded as one of the show's most notorious moments. From the start, Hannah looked uncomfortable. While many of Norton's guests relax into the light-hearted pandemonium of the show, she came across as reserved, flustered, and strangely removed. While Norton is adept at nudging even the most reserved of guests out of their shell, Hannah's reserve seemed unbreakable. When questioned about her profession or her experiences on individual films, responses were brief, evasive, and offered with little passion. There was minimal attempt to elaborate on anecdotes or play along with Norton's attempts at humor. This forced the host to try and keep the momentum going himself, frequently filling gaps in conversation himself or immediately changing the subject. One of the most cringeworthy moments of awkwardness occurred when Hannah shared a story that could have been humorous, but wound up being a meandering, confusing tale leading nowhere. The audience didn't know whether to laugh or hold out for a punchline that never came, and everyone just sat in awkward silence. Norton, being the pro that she is, tried to cover for the moment with a bit of witty humor, but tension still prevailed. Some of the unease had to do with Hannah's body language. She seemed tense, tending to be aloof and fidgety, avoiding eye contact whenever possible. Although some guests revel naturally in the frenetic group dynamic of Norton's couch, Hannah was self-absorbed by it. Instead of rebounding off the energy of the other guests, she pulled away still further into herself, highlighting the contrast even more. To be specific, Hannah wasn't rude or unpleasant. She just appeared deeply ill at ease in the talk show setting. Her innate shyness, plus the unstructured style of the show, set up a conflict that the show couldn't quite win. Ultimately, Hannah's appearance wasn't shocking, but it was memorably uncomfortable. It served to show just how much the Graham Norton show depends on chemistry, timing, and a desire to play along. Without those factors, even a renowned actor like Daryl Hannah can fail. At one moment, following yet another clipped answer, Norton sighed with a wry grin, "This is hard work, Robert." The audience tittered, but the reality was obvious. This interview was a battle. De Niro wasn't rude, only protective. He broke eye contact, set Ramrod straight, and seemed like a man getting through the process rather than having a good time. On a program based on banter with a group and informal tales, his silence became untenable. Norton sustained the energy with charm, but the strain was evident. Afterwards, he acknowledged that there are some guests that are simply not made for the format. De Niro, even with his legendary body of work, was among them.